Hi, I'm going to be demonstrating how to undo a simple 3-loop, relatively square braid. I've so far braided out an inch or two using the V-fell method for making simple 2-pass braids. It's also known as method 2. It's similar to the way the two different methods that I'm going to show undoing each other are just two different directions of braiding. They make the same braids. It's kind of like the difference between doing a pigtail braid the way most people do it, by you have 3 strands, by taking the outer strand and bringing it to the center of the braid again and again, versus the other way, which works fine too, taking the center strand and bringing it out. Both of them make the same structure, the same braiding structure, upside down from each other. I mean, if you turn them, once you tie off at both ends, you can't tell which method was used. For example, for this square braid, this 3-loop roundish or square braid. So I've braided outward using the V-fell method, which is where the outer loop is brought to the center of the braid. Of the 4 fingers that I'm using in V-fell braiding, the lowest one that doesn't have a loop will do the active braiding. So let's arrange this in the camera. So my here on this round, my middle finger of the left hand is going to go through that braid, through that loop and over the other one and bring it to the center, tighten, and then the other hand is going to reciprocate, bringing the outer loop there to the center. I've done 1 full cycle now. I have another video showing how to make a 3-loop braid, so I'm not going to focus on that so much as undoing this braid. So that's how the braid was done. To undo it, say I decided I really wished I really meant to make a flat braid, not a square one, or I can just see there was a mistake back there somewhere, and I want to undo the little piece of fuzz on the outside. Well, forget about the fuzz. The opposite braiding motions of A-fell braiding will undo this braid. To undo this braid, or if I had started from the beginning and was braiding, to do A-fell braiding, of these 4 fingers that are going to be interacting, it's now going to be the index finger that always does the pulling on each hand. It's going to here pull back the loop that I braided. It's going to pull it back through the middle finger loop. So, and since when I do V-fell braiding, I always turn the loops by taking them from above. That is also how I undo. Many people do A-fell braiding this way. Many people do A-fell braiding by reaching below and turning the loop. I must reach above and turn it to unbraid the braid I made, since that's how I braided it. So I'm going to now begin undoing, reaching the first finger through the middle finger loop and taking the opposite hand's middle finger, pulling it through. Now the opposite hand's loop will shift down. I don't actually need to take the first finger out, because it's now going to go through that loop to take this one back. There, I just undid that one. Now left loop shifts down. Left index reaches out to take back the loop that once was on. I'm using wool, and I actually, with wool sticks a bit, so I actually do have to normally you don't have to tighten when you're unbraiding, but since wool, I might go like that once in a while to kind of loosen the strands that are sticking to each other there. Okay, so on the right hand, I'm going to shift down, reach out, take this. I'm going to go faster now because I want to, what did I do there? I want to try and, probably forgot what I was doing and braided. I want to try and get to the, maybe I won't be able to, get to the beginning of this. Yeah, this is sticking a bit because it's wool. Loosening up. Just had this braid handy. I'll spread apart as if I'm tightening. That might help the wool sticky bits undo at the base. Normally you wouldn't, at the fell there, normally you wouldn't have to do this move, the straightening out move, because you're with cotton or silk or whatever, the you don't need to tighten to undo. I'm detaching the the stuck bits of wool. Okay, so now I'm back at the beginning. I've unbraided to the beginning. I didn't have a mistake. If I had, the unbraiding would have tied up at that point. That's why one of the reasons I need to watch, making sure that it does undo with each move, because when it comes to the part where I made a mistake, it'll probably tie up there, and he would start braiding outward again. You need to, when it comes to the mistake, then you need to kind of fuss and undo the mistake that you made, kind of figure it out. You don't even have to understand it, just as long as you can get the loop to come back through. Okay, now I'm back at the beginning of my knot, and I'm going to start braiding, and I'm going to braid now with the A-fell method that I just used to unbraid. I will take the loops from below now, since I already showed taking them from above. So you start with your hands, the loops arranged so. First finger is going to do the braiding, always in A-fell braiding. It reaches through the B loop. And now I could choose to take from above. Instead I'm going to choose, the medieval manuscripts did not specify whether to take from above or from below to turn the loop. They just said to turn the loop. Many have assumed to take from below. In South America, the Guajiro Indians there, who do both A-fell and V-fell braiding, they take from above no matter which method they're using. But I don't know. I don't think there's an extant tradition of A-fell braiding that hasn't been resurrected from the old documents, so I don't think it's known what people did. But either way works fine. I'll take from below now to turn the loop. So there. Now the opposite hand. Let's do that a little slower. I forgot to tighten. Okay, here we go. First finger reaches through the loop, or loops, if this were more than a 3-loop braid, through the loop of its own hand. Reaches and takes the lowest loop of the opposite hand from below to turn it, brings it through. The opposite hand's loop shifts down one position so that this index finger will be ready to braid, tighten. Usually this index finger actually would stay within the loop, since it's going to go back in any case for the next move. So here comes the next move. Index finger through the middle finger loop. Takes the lowest loop of the opposite hand from below to turn it, brings it through, tighten and shift. The shifting move has happened and the index finger stays within the loop in order to effect the next loop transfer. There. Tighten. It doesn't really matter when you do the shifting. I mean, it can happen during I'm doing this again, during the tightening move. And I'm not going to spend a long time on this. I want to make a little length of A-fell braid here and then demonstrate undoing it with V-fell braiding moves, I mean. And it's making the same braid that I had made before. This is a bicolor loop braid with a nice lengthwise striping pattern because of the way I set up the loops to start with. Let me show that. Each loop is half black, has a black shank, and on the left hand the loops are all arranged with a black shank down on the lower position on the fingers, and on the right hand it's the opposite. The black shank is on the upper position on the finger, and this will never change because as I bring each loop over it turns. So when I bring this loop over to the other hand, it will have the black shank upward. That ends up creating actually two lengthwise black stripes on either side of the braid. Okay, so here's a little bit of I don't know if that was showing in the camera. Here's a little length, 1.5 inches or 2 inches. And so now, say I decide I want to undo this. I really meant to do some other type of braiding. So to undo, I will now use V-fell braiding moves. And this time I'll be taking, since I braided it by taking from the loops from below, I will unbraid the same way. So I'm now using the lower of the four fingers, the lower one that has no loop, to go through the opposite hand's lowest loop and take the upper loop. Upper meaning the way the palms face each other, The index is the upper loop. So I'm taking it, turning it from below, which will undo the twist. I normally wouldn't have to stretch apart with this, I have found, with this wool. I did something wrong there. Yeah. I'm A-cell braiding again. Somehow I just got, I don't know, forgot what I was doing here. It's tricky to go. That one didn't get a turn. It's kind of tricky to switch back and forth. You should pay attention. So it's going through the lower loop, taking that one, stretching out to get the wool bits to release at the cell. This is V-fell braiding, turning from below, and it's undoing my A-fell braid. The same exact principle works whether you're doing a 5-loop or a 7-loop braid as well. Above 7 loops, using 9 loops, I use different methods for undoing because A-fell braiding doesn't work very well with 9 loops. I actually do have a method, but it's very similar to the V-fell 11-loop method of braiding, so I don't recommend learning it until after you've learned how to braid V-fell with 11 loops. If you want to undo a braid, I don't have a 9-loop braid here, but I can demonstrate it with a 3-loop braid too. Here, let's put that over here. If you want to undo a 9-loop braid that you've braided V-fell and you don't know an A-fell method to undo it, what you can do, let's braid it a bit, V-fell. What you can do is you can send the taken loop back. I'm probably going way over my time allotment. You can just send the loop that you took. So here, I'm just taking this loop off the index finger. So that's the one that's going to have to go back now if I'm undoing. It's so easy to reach through and get it, but if you couldn't reach through and get it, for example when you have 9 loops, you can simply take this loop, I usually wrap it once, and send it back that way. I use this hand's index finger, send it back through. Usually there's quite a few loops that I'm sending it back through, so that it ends up back on that hand, and then I have to undo the twist that was in it. There, that move was undone. You can usually often undo the twist by how you place the loop onto the finger too, but that way will work. So the next loop that has to go through is this loop here, the last one. I can see at the fell it's the last loop through. It's always the loop on the lowest finger for undoing V-fell braids that will have to go through to be undone. I shift down because I need to vacate a position on the opposite hand's index finger to put the loop. I then am going to pass it through. When you have a lot of loops on the other hand, that's problematic to do this way, and it's easier to wrap the loop, and in fact I usually wrap it on that hand's A finger, send it through, put it on, and then undo the twist that needs to be undone. Okay, that's about it. Thanks for watching.